Look at an ultrasound of a baby still inside the womb, and you'll often see something surprising. A tiny thumb, already tucked neatly into a tiny mouth. This isn't happening after birth. It's happening months before the baby is even born. So why does this specific habit start so incredibly early, before a baby has even taken a single breath? The answer involves a reflex essential for survival, a genuine self-soothing mechanism, and a surprising clue about handedness. Yes, handedness. What a fetus does with its thumb may actually predict something about their future. Let's get into it. Let's start right at the beginning. Thumb sucking doesn't start after birth at all. Ultrasound studies have observed fetuses sucking their thumbs as early as 12 to 15 weeks of pregnancy. That's less than 4 months into a roughly 9-month pregnancy, remarkably early in development. At this stage, it isn't a conscious choice. It's largely driven by very early reflex activity. The fetus's brain isn't even fully steering the movement yet. Much of it runs on spinal reflex alone. Here's the genuinely surprising part one mentioned earlier. A landmark study found that roughly 90% of fetuses studied preferred sucking their right thumb. Only about 10% showed a preference for their left thumb instead. Researchers later followed up with these same children years afterward, once they were old enough to write and throw. The thumb preference observed before birth strongly lined up with the child's later hand preference in life. It's a genuinely remarkable clue that some physical preferences may be set incredibly early, before birth even happens. Now let's talk about why this reflex exists in the first place. It starts with basic survival. Every mammal is born needing to feed almost immediately to survive those critical first hours and days. The sucking reflex is one of several primitive reflexes present at birth, essential for that first successful feeding. Scientists believe fetal thumb sucking may function as practice for this essential reflex, well before it's actually needed. By the time of birth, the muscles and coordination involved have already had months of quiet rehearsal. The sucking reflex isn't alone either. Newborns arrive with an entire toolkit of primitive reflexes. There's the rooting reflex, where a baby automatically turns their head toward anything touching their cheek. That reflex helps a hungry newborn quickly locate a feeding source without needing to be taught anything. There's also the grasping reflex, causing a newborn's fingers to instinctively curl tightly around anything placed in their palm. These reflexes are all present at birth, hardwired by evolution long before conscious learning ever begins. Thumb sucking fits neatly into this same category of deeply automatic, survival-oriented early behavior. Researchers actually split sucking behavior into 2 distinct categories worth understanding. Nutritive sucking is the kind used during actual feeding, whether breastfeeding or bottle feeding. Non-nutritive sucking involves no food at all. Thumbs, pacifiers, and fingers all fall into this second category. These 2 types even show measurably different rhythms and patterns when researchers study them closely. Non-nutritive sucking isn't about hunger at all. It serves a completely different, equally important purpose. So if it's not about hunger, what is non-nutritive sucking actually doing for a baby? Research shows it has a genuine, measurable calming effect on infants, especially during stress or discomfort. Scientists have studied this closely in hospital settings, particularly with premature infants in intensive care. Non-nutritive sucking appears to activate sensory nerve pathways through touch and pressure in the mouth. This is a genuinely different mechanism than the calming effect of sweet taste, which works through separate opioid pathways. Combined, these findings show sucking is a real, physiologically measurable tool for soothing distress, not just a habit. This calming mechanism is exactly why thumb sucking becomes such a reliable self-soothing tool for babies. Unlike a bottle or a caregiver, a baby's own thumb is always immediately available, day or night. That constant availability makes it an especially convenient and effective coping tool during infancy and early childhood. It's part of why so many babies naturally gravitate toward this specific behavior across nearly every culture studied. For most children, this is a temporary phase that resolves entirely on its own, with no intervention needed. Most kids gradually stop sometime between roughly 2 and 4 years of age without any real effort involved. As children develop other ways to manage stress and emotions, the specific need for thumb sucking usually fades naturally. It's a normal part of development that quietly resolves itself for the overwhelming majority of children. Once permanent teeth begin coming in, usually starting around age 5 or 6, prolonged sucking can affect their alignment. Persistent, intense thumb sucking beyond this point can sometimes contribute to issues with bite alignment over time. This is exactly why pediatric dentists often start gently encouraging children to stop around this specific age range. Before that point, though, most dental professionals consider the habit developmentally normal and low concern. It's worth noting that attitudes toward this behavior have actually shifted quite a bit over time. In earlier decades, some parenting advice treated thumb sucking as a habit that needed to be stopped very early and firmly. Modern pediatric guidance tends to be considerably more relaxed, especially for children under about 4 years old. This shift reflects a better modern understanding of the reflex's real developmental and self-soothing purpose. It's a good example of scientific understanding directly reshaping everyday parenting advice over time. Quick pause before we continue. Take a guess. Do you think pacifiers and thumb sucking have exactly the same effect on a baby's mouth and teeth? Not entirely. Pacifiers can often be gradually phased out more easily, since they aren't a permanent part of the body. A thumb is always available and impossible to simply take away, which can make the habit a bit more persistent. Let's clear up a few common myths before we wrap up. Myth 1. Thumb sucking is purely a bad habit with no real biological purpose behind it. Not accurate. It begins as a genuine survival-related reflex and serves a real, measurable calming function. Myth 2. Thumb sucking always causes permanent dental problems, no matter the child's age. Not true. Concerns mainly apply once permanent teeth arrive, and effects vary depending on intensity and duration. Myth 3. Only human babies engage in this kind of non-nutritive comfort sucking behavior. Not quite. Similar comfort-driven, non-feeding behaviors have been observed in other young primates as well. Myth 4. A fetus sucking its thumb is simply random, meaningless movement with no real significance. Not accurate, as we covered. It connects to real reflex development and even later hand preference. Myth 5. Children who suck their thumbs longer than others are simply less disciplined or more anxious. Not accurate. Duration varies enormously due to genetics, temperament, and individual development, not character. Myth 6. Bottle-fed babies suck their thumbs less often than breastfed babies, or vice versa. Research hasn't found a strong, consistent link either way. Many other individual factors matter more. Let's wrap up with a few fun extra facts. Some studies suggest thumb-sucking behavior can even be influenced by genetics, running somewhat in families. Twin studies in particular have shown some shared tendency toward this behavior between identical twins. Non-nutritive sucking is now a standard, well-studied comfort technique used intentionally in many newborn hospital units. It's a good example of an everyday baby behavior that turned out to have genuine, well-documented scientific backing. Next time you see a baby quietly sucking their thumb, you'll know there's real, fascinating biology behind it. One more fact before the recap. Some young primates, including chimpanzees, show similar comfort-driven sucking behavior. This suggests the underlying comfort mechanism may be shared more broadly across closely related species. It's a small but genuine reminder of how deeply rooted some of our earliest behaviors really are. Okay, let's bring this all together. Thumb sucking actually begins months before birth, driven by early reflex activity in the womb. Which thumb a fetus prefers may even offer an early clue about their future hand preference in life. The reflex likely evolved as practice for the essential feeding behavior every newborn urgently needs. Beyond feeding, non-nutritive sucking provides a genuine, measurable calming effect through real physiological pathways. Most children naturally outgrow the habit entirely between roughly 2 and 4 years of age. All from one small, quiet behavior that starts long before a baby ever takes their very first breath. If this answered a question you never knew you had, that's exactly what this channel is about. So if you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it takes about 2 seconds. Drop a comment and tell me which part surprised you the most. Was it the handedness connection? The calming mechanism? Let me know. And if you like this video, go ahead and tap that like button. It's a small click that genuinely helps this channel keep growing. There are hundreds of everyday questions just like this one waiting to be explored. Things about early life almost everyone has wondered about, but never actually researched. That's what this channel is all about. Toggling your curiosity on, one question at a time. One more thing before you go. Tap that notification bell too, so you actually see it when the next video drops. Next time, we're tackling why flamingos stand on one leg for hours without falling over. It's a surprisingly clever energy-saving trick, and you will not guess the mechanism. I'll see you in the next one.